Hi guys, this is Sensho, and today we are looking at how to identify the tempo on a sample quickly so you can move from the setup phase to the creative phase as fast as possible. The art of sampling tends to lead us into territory that doesn't fit into a nice tidy tempo. If you want it to play nicely in Ableton or in hardware, for example, here's what you need to do. Here we have an unwarped, unidentified sample ready to go, and it sounds like this. This will actually be a good example because you won't always have the transients from drums to reference, and sometimes you just have to use your ears. Go ahead and grab a free app called BPM on your phone, or have the website called all8.com bookmarked, and that's where you can actually just tap the tempo with the keystroke. Ableton does have a tap tempo function, but it adjusts the tempo to your tapping in real time, so you'll hear a bunch of clicks and pops while it plays, and I find that to be a little too distracting. So the first thing we want to do is cut the section we want to sample using Command E. Next, let's zoom into the very beginning, hold Command-Alt-Shift, and then drag the start of the waveform to line up precisely with the grid. Now, play the sample and then pull out your phone or pull up the all8.com and start tapping the tempo along with the beat. And this doesn't have to be perfect by any means. If you prefer to do this visually, just adjust the global tempo until the length looks close to lining up to the grid. And again, make sure warp is off if you do it this way. Now let's change the BPM in Ableton to our rough tempo. Turn on the metronome, and then we'll just get the clip looping with Command L. If the last bit of the sample ends before it's supposed to, go ahead and just extend it so that the playable part of the audio reaches the right length. And if it's overextended, you can just shorten it to the cutoff point. So here's where the warp points come in. Press Shift Tab or double click on the clip to enter the clip view so we can get into the nitty-gritty and get it looping correctly. The basic idea here is that we're going to quantize using larger chunks first and then use progressively smaller increments. Sort of reminds me of like buttoning up a shirt. Like sometimes you start with a button and it seems like the right slot, but then when you get to the bottom, you realize that your shirt looks all wonky. In this method, we're going to start with the beginning and end, and then move to the middle to make sure that everything was buttoned up correctly before we continue on. So head over to where you want the sample to end and add a warp point by double clicking the grid, or you can actually just click in the grid and press Command I, and then you can also double click the warp marker to delete it. Typically, Ableton is pretty accurate with where it calculates the transients to be, which are indicated with the little triangles at the top of the clip. They're usually good places to add your warp markers though, or at least a good start. You can also just use Command click to place a warp marker anywhere inside the grid. So now just drag the end warp point to the shaded area so that it's no longer a part of the loop. And then the next thing we're gonna do is go halfway to the clip and add another warp marker at bar 3 or 5 or 9 or whatever it is depending on the length of the sample. And then just drag it so that it snaps into place. And this is kind of the point where I just listen and see if we need to add or adjust any warp markers. If it sounds to you like it needs to be a little bit tighter, just add more warp markers halfway in between what you've already added, and then just kind of continue doing that until you're happy with how it's looping. If you're noticing that some of the transients are either early or late, just hold Alt and then drag the warp marker to slide it where you want it. If you don't, it'll just snap to the grid, which might be a little too drastic for whatever it is that you're working on. The final step that I like to do is to duplicate the clip by holding Alt and dragging, and then consolidating the clip with Command J, which means that you commit the changes to the audio in the form of a new clip, and then just use that new clip for your sampling purposes. The reason I like to do this is that if you are wanting to use Repitch Mode, where the sample goes higher in pitch at a faster tempo, while all your warp markers are in place, the pitch of the sample will change based on how much you stretched each section of it. Plus, I also just kind of like having a clean loop to start working from. Now you get to the fun part, which is actually sampling. If you like this video, check out the playlist we put together with lots of other helpful sampling tutorials like where to find samples, how to chop up samples in Ableton, and lots of other good stuff. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.